the fall of Tobruk, the British, pursued by the newly promoted Field Marshal Rommel, retreated to defensive positions at Mersa Matruh, about 100 miles inside Egypt, while General Auchinleck had replaced General Ritchie to take personal command of the 8th Army. Rommel attacked Mersa Matruh on June the 26th, and after 3 days of fighting, routed 4 British divisions. The British fell back still further till El Alamein, less than 100 miles from Alexandria. Here, Auchinleck formed a defensive line, secured by the Ruistat Ridge, a few miles south of El Alamein. Rommel attacked on July the 1st, attempting to sweep south around El Alamein. However, he was constrained by the impassable Qatar depression, and neither side could make any significant headway. After 3 weeks fighting, both sides paused to regroup. Churchill replaced Auchinleck in early August with General Sir Harold Alexander as Commander-in-Chief of the Middle East. Sir William Gott was promoted to General and given command of the 8th Army. However, on August the 7th, the day after his appointment, Gott was killed when his airplane was shot down during a flight to Cairo. His successor was a relatively unknown Lieutenant General Bernard Montgomery. Although Churchill kept pressuring General Alexander to take the offensive, neither he nor General Montgomery wanted to attack first without amassing an overwhelming advantage in both men and material. On August the 31st, 1942, Rommel launched an attack where he planned to sweep south around Ruistat Ridge and cut off El Alamein from the rear. However, the British had an advantage of knowing Rommel's plans through ultra-intercepts. They had laid extensive minefields and heavily fortified Al Mahel Haifa Ridge to the southeast of El Alamein. Battles broke out around Ruistat Ridge and Al Haifa Ridge, and by the 3rd of September, Rommel's attack faltered as he ran short of fuel. Montgomery immediately counterattacked and pushed the Axis forces back to their starting positions. Both sides then again paused to regroup. Montgomery used this time to rest and train his troops, build up his supply and equipment strength, and plan his counterattack. In the meantime, Rommel's supply situation got worse as the RAF and the Royal Navy cut the supplies he received by half. Worse still, Rommel became ill and had to return to Germany for treatment. When the Second Battle of El Alamein began on the 23rd of October, Montgomery had a 3-to-1 advantage in both men and equipment. Rommel immediately returned from Germany to resume command. For 5 days the British attempted by sheer weight of numbers to break through the Axis positions while sustaining 10,000 casualties. Montgomery renewed the attack on October the 30th with support from the RAF. Rommel, running short of both fuel and ammunition, started to give ground on November the 3rd, and on November the 4th, Rommel withdrew. This time it was the turn of the British to pursue. Following the Second Battle of El Alamein, Montgomery cautiously pursued Rommel westwards across North Africa. The British attempted to encircle the Axis forces near Mersa Matruh, but were hampered by a shortage of fuel and heavy rain. Axis forces retreated from Sidi Barrani on November the 9th and from the Halfaya Pass, their last position in Egypt, on November the 11th. Tobruk fell to the British on November the 13th. Derna was captured on November the 15th. Benghazi, whose port facilities were destroyed by Rommel, was occupied by the British on November the 20th. Rommel reached El Agheila on November the 22nd. Both sides spent the next few weeks resting and resupplying. Between the 11th and the 18th of December, there was a brief engagement. However, Rommel's focus was on preserving his forces to fight another day, so he disengaged and resumed his retreat westwards towards Tunis. Rommel reached Tripoli on January the 23rd and the Tunisian border by the end of the month. However, by the time he reached Tunisia, there was another Allied force waiting for him. With the objective of catching the Axis forces in North Africa in a pincer, American, British and Commonwealth troops began Operation Torch, the landings in northwestern Africa on the 8th of November 1942. Their main objectives were the Tunisian port and airfield of Bizerti and the Tunisian capital of Tunis. In a coordinated three-pronged landing on territory occupied by the Vichy French, the Western Task Force under Major General George Patton landed near Casablanca in Morocco. The Central Task Force under Major General Lloyd Fredendall landed near Oran in Algeria. And the Eastern Task Force under Major General Charles Ryder landed near Algiers. They assumed there would be little resistance to the landings from the Vichy French forces. And although this was the case in Algiers, the Vichy French forces put up strong resistance to the Allied landings in Oran and Casablanca. Algiers was captured on the first day of the landings, along with the Vichy French command in Africa. The Axis reacted swiftly, sending troops from Sicily to Tunisia on November the 9th. After 3 days of talks, Allied generals Mark Clark and Dwight Eisenhower reached an agreement with the Vichy French leader Admiral François Darlan to stop all armed resistance on November the 11th. For the Axis, to hold on to Tunis was critical to help prevent them from being trapped between the two Allied forces. In mid-November, the Allies began their cautious advance eastwards towards Tunisia. On November the 28th, the Allies reached Tiborba, only 12 miles from Tunis. But with a numerical advantage in troops and air superiority, the Axis drove them back 20 miles in 7 days. Both sides then paused to rest, regroup and build up their forces.